Adalynn has just given birth to her daughter Elizabeth and is now back home with her husband Bill. There are sleepless nights ahead when Adalynn has to get up every 2 hours to feed the baby, but the worst is yet to come. Bill leaves for a conference for a week and Adalynn is left alone with postpartum depression, exacerbated by worsening obsessive-compulsive disorder. As if that weren't enough, Adalynn begins to hear and see strange things that hint that there is someone else in the house, besides her and Elizabeth. In recent years, more and more female directors have been coming into the horror genre, seeking to tell stories about things that excite and frighten them, or offering a slightly different perspective and angle on seemingly familiar stories and events. And it's all the more surprising to see a horror movie about childbearing and baby blues, written and directed by men in 2023. Were there no women willing to tell it? For the first hour of Adalynn, this question is quite pertinent, because the movie keeps pushing somewhere about the notes. You have a story about a woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown, with a great trauma in her past, who is left all alone and has to battle with panic attacks, rampant obsessive-compulsive disorder, chronic sleep deprivation, fear for her child and doubts about her own mental health, because she sees and hears strange things now and then. It's as simple and effective a scheme as possible to mix with a subtle psychological drama, but the authors of Adalynn seem to avoid any subtleties. As if not trusting their own mastery of visual storytelling, they accompany the action with the voiceover of the heroine, who spells out everything she feels, thinks, and fears. This is a well-known crutch that can be used to help the viewer understand a complex plot or feel a character's emotions, but in this case this crutch only gets in the way, because the heroine's emotions are maximally obvious, as they are always twisted somewhere in the hysterical spectrum, and there is practically no plot, only a string of surreal and creepy scenes that scream the irrational fears of the new mother. That she will throw the child from a height, smother her daughter with a pillow, freeze her in the refrigerator or roast in the microwave. Closer to the finale, the movie finally goes into phantasmagoric surreal, where it is impossible to understand what is happening in reality and what is a figment of the obviously sick imagination of the protagonist. The story ends with an absolutely genre twist, which explains a lot, but in the end it's frustrating because Adalynn turns out to be not some post-horror, which speaks about the phenomenon as a whole in the language of metaphors, but a completely rational, thought-out and down-to-earth thriller about something that happens to mothers who have experienced the tragedy of losing a child. In that sense, Adalynn is a truly masculine movie, allowing no ambiguity, no symbolism, and leaving no room for fantasy. And in this case, this is shortcoming. In this form, from this point of view, it is nothing more than a half-hour episode of some horror almanac. But the real horror about motherhood will be made by someone else. Someone who knows it firsthand, who will help us connect to the protagonist without the help of voiceover, and who sees nothing criminal in leaving some questions unanswered. If without them it will be scarier and more dramatic.